Hey guys. Man, all my videos seem to be about electronics. So this time I'm going to be taking apart a capacitor. An electrolytic capacitor, to be exact. This is a very high power one, 200 volts. However, it's only 470 microfarads. So yeah. I've got two of these like identical capacitors. But I'm going to be taking this one apart because I know I'm never going to use them. So these ones are kind of strange because they've got this plastic thing on the top covering the metal part. On these bigger ones, I guess I'll just show you. So I've got these pliers here, and first all I gotta do is just peel this outer plastic stuff off, this label, which is very easy to pull off. And there we go. As you can see, it's got like the shape of a K. And yeah, I don't know why it's shaped like a K. Most of them are an X. But what that does is, when these get overvolted, or just something happens to them, where the inside gets really hot and pressurizes, smaller capacitors that do not have those lines on the top, they'll just boom! And then explode into a big cloud of white dust. They'll make a loud pop, and then explode. When they explode, they make a loud pop, and white smoke will be everywhere. And these, however, they've got that thing at the top there. So when it pressurizes, instead of just all bursting out into a big cloud just like that, pop, instead, the top just kind of opens up a little bit, and that little part where all the lines intersect right there opens up into a little tiny hole, and it just and sprays out all of that white smoke, which is much better than bang. It's much better than an explosion and fire. Instead, it just shoots the electrolyte out the top calmly. Oh, right. This one's tough, man. So, yeah, I'm not going to use this. I'm never going to be using I'm never going to be using something that'll be, like, more than 50 volts. So there's no reason to have a 200 volt capacitor if it's not even, like, at my limit yet. The only capacitors I take are if they're 1,000 microfarads or more. The biggest one I've got is a 10,000 microfarad, and there we go. And yeah, so I've got this. You've seen my components box in my other videos, and now I've sorted it out a bit more, and I've gotten rid of a whole lot. Well, I haven't gotten rid of, but I've taken a lot of capacitors out of that and put different ones in. So now I take every capacitor that's that's 1,000 microfarads or more, but I only put a capacitor into the components box if it's 10 volts or less. Because I'm never ever going to be using... I almost never use stuff that's more than 10 volts. So, yeah. And that components box is pretty much about LEDs. So, yeah. And this 10,000 microfarad one is way too big to fit in any part of my components box. And it's 75 volts. And it is the biggest capacitor I have in capacity and size. Like, literal size. It is the biggest capacitor I have. And yeah, I'll go grab it. Frank, excuse me. Oh, that's just a fly. I was wondering what that was. Here it is. my 10,000 microfarad 75 volt capacitor. As you can see, I've attached some wires onto it. And yeah, this is a very, very big capacitor. I haven't seen a capacitor bigger. I know, microwave capacitors are bigger in size, but I've never seen one of those. I've never taken apart a microwave. And their capacity is, like, tiny. The capacitor is massive. It's like this big. But it only holds, if I remember correctly, 0.7 microfarads. Which is tiny, 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 tiny. So I'm never going to use one of them. But the reason they're so big is because they're a few thousand volts. But yeah, this is 75 volts, but I'm never going to be using it for 75 volts. But it's 10,000 microfarads, which is crazy. So, yeah. So little power, something longer than any other capacitor I've got, no matter how many volts you put into it. This is only 470 microfarads, and the minimum I take is 1,000, and this is only 470, so I'm going to be taking it apart. 470 microfarads, 200 volts. It's not at the minimum microfarads I take, and it's way more volts than I'm ever going to use, so frick it. I'm taking it apart. I've taken apart capacitors many times, and I know what's in them. This one's being a piece of crap with me. The metal on this one's real thick. Holy crap. Is it ever thick? Yes, there we go. Brick. Jeez, what's going on? Why is this one being such a piece of crap? Get off. There we go. And there we go. We have the metal casing off of the capacitor. And man, the inside of this is a lot smaller than the outside part. There's a lot of room in here for, like, more. The capacitor is bigger than it needs to be. But yeah, here's the insides. Just a big, long roll of a piece of cardboard, some type of metal, and a piece of cardboard, and a different type of metal. All rolled up in there. And this is completely soaked in this gross, stinky electrolyte. Ugh. That electrolyte stuff is, well, that's why they're called electrolytic capacitors. And, yeah, so I'm going to be doing this in my sink, because it's going to be able to, like, wash that crap off of there.